Hop on in here. You guys are coming in here fast tonight. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. Guys, we're going to do Ask Me Anything so you know what it means. Go ahead and pop your questions in the chat. And we will take it from there. So let's go. Let's see what we got here. Oh, there we go. There we go. Me and my excellent angles. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey guys, we're doing Ask Me Anything. So go ahead and start popping your questions in the chat. Welcome everybody. So I'll take any question that you have. Go ahead. Les! So we're doing Ask Me Anything really quick. It's late, but why not? Why not? So we'll try to do Ask Me Anything. Everybody hop on in here. Slowly easing on in here. It takes a minute, so it's still cooking. It's still cooking. You guys are a little low down there, Les. I gotta try to prop y'all up some kind of way. You guys are just, it's a struggle bus over here for poor IG. It is an absolute struggle bus. I guess I should have checked to see how much battery power I have, but we'll see what we can do. We'll try to make it. Me and my 1001 Bible tings. Welcome everybody. Let's see here. That might be better. At least you're like a little bit better. I don't know if it's good, but you're better. All right, we're doing Ask Me Anything, everybody. April, welcome, welcome. My sissy in the house, like actual fam. I've known April my entire life. And I've known April since we were like teeny boppers. Since we used to go to high school dances. I knew April when I had a bob and a perm. Welcome everybody. Hey April. So yeah, we're gonna do Ask Me Anything. That means you guys can put any question in the whole wide world in the chat. So let's see what happens, folks. It takes a minute for everybody to kind of load in here and log in. But yep, everybody's starting to show up. All right, let's go, let's go. We're doing Ask Me Anything. So that means pop your questions in the chat, and any question that you ask, I'm gonna answer. And it could be any question in the whole wide world, and then I'm gonna answer it. So go ahead, pop your questions in the chat. Let's go, let's see what happens. It's always an adventure, you know what I mean? It's kind of always an adventure. So let's see what happens. For those of you guys who don't know, we're on YouTube right now. Victory Life Podcast 7603 on YouTube. If you're curious, hop on over here and subscribe. Yeah, so April and I went to high school together, and she said we have to celebrate 2026. We do have to celebrate 2026, y'all. Overdue. I didn't get enough celebrations in 2025. It's been kind of a slow year for celebrating. So we'll try to slip something in there. So welcome everybody. We're doing Ask Me Anything, which means you can pop any question in the whole wide world in the chat, and then you can ask me anything. So let's see how it goes. Let's see. Welcome everybody. Welcome. I see people starting to pop one in here. Yep, it's time for Ask Me Anything. So go ahead and flood the chat with all your questions. You can ask any question in the whole wide world. Everybody just spam the chat with your questions, and I'm gonna start taking your questions one by one. So come on in, the water's warm, get settled, grab your snacks. You can ask any question. Definitely, I'm good at your health questions and your spiritual questions because I'm a nurse and I'm a Bible expert. However, I will answer any question that you have. You definitely can ask your relationship questions. You can ask your life questions, your finance questions, and you can ask about me. So welcome. Do I have a book on Amazon yet? No, I just finished writing a book, but I didn't publish it yet. I will publish it soon. Welcome. So yeah, let me know. Thank you for the badge. Key. Welcome. Y'all, let me know what's going on. I want to see your questions. Pop your questions in the chat. I want to see what's up. I have my first question from IG today. Question is, am I seeing someone? Y'all, this is a very interesting question. I will tell you why. All right, transparency time. Someone asked me if I'm seeing someone. Firstly, let's talk about how that question is worded. Can we just talk about how excellent Les worded that question? It's worded so excellently because it doesn't pigeonhole you into official relationship. You guys see, y'all learn from Les. He's one of the day one folks, okay, on the whole stream. Okay, guys, as I answer this question, go ahead and flood the chat with your questions because I'm taking literally any question you ask. I'm going to take the question. Anything. It could be anything. It could be the most random thing. You don't even have to clean up your question. You could just spit it out and then I'll clean it up on the delivery. So the first question I got popped in here from IG, and yes, we're on live on TikTok, on IG, and on YouTube. Victory Life Podcast 7603. Thank you for the badge, Steffi. Thank you for the badge, Gabe. My first question comes in from IG, and the question is, am I seeing anyone? So firstly, I want to fully describe the excellence of the question because the question doesn't pigeonhole someone. So I really think that Les could have been potentially an interrogator or a prosecutor. He could have done that because he made the question broad enough to where if you don't know what you're doing, you should still be able to answer the question. So welcome everybody. I see YouTube starting to fill up. Come on in here, YouTube. Come on in here, sit down. You guys continue to flood the chat with all of your questions. I'm going to scroll back and I'm going to start taking all your questions. So welcome, YouTubers. Welcome, welcome. So the question is, am I seeing someone? That's the first question. And here's how I would describe it. I would describe the entire time I've been in school as a very dormant phase. We'll call that a dry, dormant, a phase of hibernation. Can we call it what it was? I was hibernating during school. I've been in school for 3 years and just graduated. I've had a couple of I don't even know what you want to call it, y'all. A couple of, I want to call it a hiccup. I've had a couple of dating scenarios and they've all kind of fallen short. That's what had happened. And I always started off really hopeful. Every time I started off super hopeful, but they kind of was I went out with someone from seminary school and that one was very short-lived. And I felt can I be honest and transparent? The seminary school person, if I look back at it, I will say this. It's very difficult when you're a Christian and you are very surrendered lifestyle type of Christian. You guys know what I'm saying? And then you date someone and they are a Christian, but then A, you have a different theology. B, you've studied the Bible a long time. So you got this combination of egos going on, which I like to say that I've graduated from my ego, but perhaps no. You got the egos going on. You want to enjoy your spiritual exchanges, but then they become debates, which is awful. And then you get to theology and then you've got different theology, and it's not stuff some theology stuff doesn't matter when you have differences in theology. But when it comes to grace, salvation, the basics, you should have those things in line. So we had differences in theology. He looked at the faith as we should basically be taking a vow of poverty. And I'm the Bible doesn't say we need to be poor. Abraham was rich. Come on now. We don't need to be poor. We could be children of the Most High God and also be children who don't have any lack. We're kingdom kids. We're a royal family. That's number one. So there was this whole let's take a vow of poverty. He had a different mission for me. His mission was out in the middle of the world. My mission was I'm public. He didn't like me having a public ministry. He wanted me to have a just in church kind of ministry. And I'm I've been doing this for years, dude. Like, it just didn't add up. Like, nothing added up. And one of the final kickers was we had a complete difference on the theology of grace. And I was like, grace is not a license to sin. And he's like, yeah, there's grace. And I'm like, I'd rather you just be worldly. I would have rather just met you at the gym like the rest of them dudes and just, the ones just be looking at you up and down. I would have rather just met one of them. It didn't work. It didn't work out. It didn't work out. I'm like, I want to work in America. I want to do public ministry. I want to, like, these things don't add up. So when God sends you your person, y'all, just FYI, when God sends you your person, there should be alignment between, like, you don't have to have the same ministry. You don't have to have the same exact ministry, but the ministries should not be in conflict. Like, it shouldn't be like, I want to be a missionary and they want to be, and they want to work online or something. It's gotta make sense together. Your theologies don't have to be one to one in every aspect of every little thing, like we all have studied, but it should be where it's not a debate but it's an exchange, and it's like there should be some good crossover. I say all that to say I do have a person of interest. I will say that I will call it a person of interest. I will call it a person of interest because I don't know what else to call it. I'll call it a person of interest, and I'm not on the market because of my person of interest. However, I just started praying, and it's not been long. I think you guys were with me when I think it was just a couple of months ago, and I was like, I always said when I get out of school, I would try to start dating. And then the month I got out of school, I had zero interest in like going online, shopping on apps. I just didn't want to, it felt very overwhelming. So I kind of went to the Lord and I was like, Lord, you know me, and I'm not about this like I'm not up for searching and digging for the needle in the haystack. And I don't have anything against it. I've done plenty of like shopping online for a man dating. I've done it. But I was like, I'm not up for it. I've done it. It's painful. It's exhausting. There's too many email exchanges. There's too many people. It's too much. It feels like a third job. I was just like, no, I can't do it. And so I talked to the Lord. I began to talk to the Lord about my marriage, my future marriage. And it took me some time to like get revelation on it, but I did a whole conversation on the fact that it was a struggle for me initially to figure out whether I should pray, like, God, let your will be done, or should I pray, like as if it's already done. So I went through a phase of like prayer and trying to like understand, should I be specifically praying for my spouse, or should I just let it, should I just be trusting God on his sovereign path that he's got me on. And it took me some time, but when I got revelation, I was so excited. I literally was like on the way to the gym, and when I got this revelation, it just blew me away. I stopped everything. I skipped the gym. I hopped online. I was like, y'all, I got to tell y'all everything. God spoke to me, and now I have like peace about this. And imagine, for a few weeks, I hadn't been praying for anyone, right? And then for a few weeks, I was like, I don't know if I should be praying specifically like, God, I would like a husband, please send my man. Or should I just be praying, God, help my desires match yours, let your will be done. And then God revealed to me in that prayer time, in my secret place time, he was like, how do you pray when you have felt like where you have the most faith? That's what he said to me. Like, how are you praying when you have a lot of faith? How are you praying when you're seeing a strong move? Is it that you're praying from a place of, God, could you please, begging? Or are you really praying in faith like it's already done? How are you praying? And I've experienced miracles of healing and etc. I've experienced that. And when I have been sick and when I've been on my sick bed, Les knows, he was around for back then. When I've been on my sick bed, I will tell you that I literally fell out of agreement with sickness. Like I wouldn't even receive it in my mind. And I said, you know what? I remember laying down, and this was like a couple of like maybe 2 or 3 Christmases ago. Les, you remember this because I came on live and talked about I was healed, but I really actually was walking out my healing. You remember this. And I was like swollen and puffy and sick. And but I was like on my sick bed. Like I was old people sick. I was sick like this. I was sick like where you're in your bed and you're so sick that I knew, because y'all know I'm a nurse. I'm an ICU nurse at that. So I'm like, I knew, I was like, what I have, the thought came to my mind, what I have, this kills the average person. That's the thought that came to my mind. And then I said to myself, I said, I fell out of agreement. Normally, I would speak out of my mouth against sickness. I would be like, I fall out of agreement with sickness. You know, I will live and not die. I would actually usually say the word of the Lord out loud, but I was so sick, I couldn't say the word of the Lord. I could hardly even lift my arms. I couldn't do anything for myself. And it happened very rapidly. And I remember waking up, and I, thank goodness, I keep like a couple of bottles of water right by my bed. And I was like, well, I know I can't get downstairs. I know I can't eat. And I was like half insane at the moment, but I was like, I know I need to drink water. I need to stay hydrated. I need to drink water because this is going to help me survive. So I grabbed my water on my like nightstand, and I'm in the bed this whole time. And I go to grab it and I go to drink the water. Y'all, I was old people sick. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like there's no substitute for this conversation. I drink the water. The water is like falling down my face, water falling into my bed. Old people sick. Can't get up, can't do for yourself. Old people sick. Wasn't even really thinking to call someone, like not even making sense, like delirious. I was going in and out of consciousness. I was waking up, and it was days later, waking up, and it was like every time I woke up, it was dark outside. And I did that for days. I'd wake up and I'd pass out. I'd drink some water, and then I wake up and I'd pass out. And then it'd be like, finally, I woke up one day and it was light outside, and it freaked me out because I forgot that there was sun. I was confused. That's how sick I was. So I couldn't even drink water properly. Like water was falling off of my face into the bed. God healed me from that kind of stuff. So when I say there's a way to pray where you're praying from a place of faith, and then there's a way to pray where you're like defeated. There are 2 different ways of praying. So I was going back to the question. The original question was, I'll go back to what I see here. Am I seeing someone? And the answer is, I have a person of interest. That's what I would describe it as. I have a person of interest, so I'm not on the market. That's what I would describe. However, going back to it, I have just recently began praying for my person. This is the conversation. For those of you guys who are just hopping in here, we just started, so you didn't miss anything. So I just started praying for my person, and I was talking to God about it. And I kept saying, for the last couple of years I've been in school, I haven't been looking to date anybody because honestly, last time I dated someone, it was messy because I tried to date and I was just starting a doctoral program. I didn't have the time. And so they needed a lot of time. I was like, this is not fair. I shouldn't do this. And after that, I made a vow to myself, I wouldn't date anyone else until I finished my degree. I just like, I don't have time for it, and I'm not going to do right. So people are going to be mad at me. I don't have time for all that. And I can't answer all the cell phones. I can't do it all. So when I got out of school, I was like, okay, I'm out, but I wasn't really motivated to work to find someone. I just wasn't motivated. I don't want to do the apps. I didn't want to do that. So I went to God. I was like, God, I just don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to do that. And I began to ask God, how do I pray? And he reminded me of how I've prayed when I had full faith. And then he reminded me that I'm strong in faith in some areas, and then I have these soft spots. And he let me see that the one soft spot that I have was prayer for a husband. That's where my faith was weaker than any other place. Now, when it comes to finances, I have full belief in God. I know he will do it. When it comes to healing, I 100% know my time is in the hands of a living God. You know, there's so, when it comes to family, I know God is moving, and I know even if I don't see it, it's happening. He is like taking the enemy down, you know, one step at a time. I have this wild, like unchallenged faith in all these other areas. But then when it came to relationship area, I didn't have that wild faith. And so I never actually really thought about how do I pray for my healing, how do I pray for this. But when it came to the relationship part, I was suddenly like, how do I do this? How do I do this? God showed me that I need to pray the way I pray for anything else where I had strong, crazy, level 10 levels of faith. He showed me that I needed to pray like that. And for me, praying like that is praying the same way I prayed when I needed healing. First of all, I didn't agree with the enemy basically saying, everyone that has this dies. That thought came to my mind, and that was an attack from the enemy. And then I was like, immediately when I was in my sickbed, when I was in my sickbed, can't drink water falling over into my bed, and then I pass out again, and days were passing like this. P.S. I lived alone, so that's not good. That's like literally could have died in your bed kind of stuff. And it happened like in 24 hours. 24 hours. I went to a party, I came back, and something happened to me. Something happened to me, and I don't even know what it was, but I was in and out of consciousness. I couldn't take care of myself. I definitely couldn't eat. Wasn't able to drink water without it falling all over. Was 2 weeks even lift my arm. My full body was in pain. I felt like my blood had crystals in it, and it was scratching me. I knew something, that whatever I had was killing me. And the thought came to my mind, like, whoever has this dies. And the first thought that I said, I couldn't speak the words of, I fall out of agreement with that. I rebuke that. I couldn't even speak the words. I didn't even have energy to speak. And normally I would do that. But in this instance, the first thing that I said was, in my mind, I said to myself, I'm not going to die, not here, not in this house, not from this condition, and not today. In my head, I said that. In my head, I just struck it down. And y'all, God is so unbelievable, y'all. When you strike something down like that in your mind, and you see that God is taking over and bringing you through it one day at a time, you start seeing your healing. I started to begin seeing my healing one day at a time. He was taking me one extremity at a time. So I say all that to say, that's how you pray when you're praying from a place of faith. Y'all be sure to like the stream really quick and subscribe. That's how you pray when you're trying to pray from a place of faith. So when it came to praying for a relationship, God showed me that, hey, you know that faith that you had when you were sick? You know that faith that you have over your family? You know that faith that you have over your finances, that you understand that God's your provider, that you cannot be taken off of this earth not one day earlier than he allows, that faith that knows he's going to chase down your family members and make them well. You know that faith, that wild faith that you have? He was like, pray that way in this area, and don't pray as a defeated person, like you're double-minded, like, would you please, begging a God who wants to give us everything. That's what he showed me. And I began to pray like that. Does that make sense? Like, gosh, God, I don't know who, and I don't know when, and I don't know what, but I trust in your plans in your plans for me, and I know you're bringing it to pass. I know, and I know whatever you have for me is good. Help me with my discernment. Help me make sure that, I'm not missing things. Help me this. I just prayed from a place of like, not weakness, like, oh God, will you bring my person? Like, God, I know you got my person. And I began to be able to see how he was preparing me, and the fact that he was growing me. I could see him doing different things, growing me. And I was like, okay, I see now. Does that make sense? So I think that's how we're supposed to pray for our person. I think we're supposed to pray from a place of faith. And I think we need to dig down to the place where we know we have faith and tap into that. If it's like you've had success in prayer when you talk to God about, I don't know, your job or your finances or your children or a certain something, or, if you've seen him move in some area, just tap into that and just say to yourself, wait, this is the same God who did this over here. He's the same God who wants good things for his kids. And as soon as we begin to remember, like, God is our Father, he is literally our Father. And as soon as we begin to think, like, if I were to have a child, right? If for those of you guys who have kids, this makes it easy, right? If you have a kid and you're like, your kid, you have this baby, and the first thing you want to do is you want to have a first year birthday party. You want to put them in a nice school, and you want to, when you start to immediately think, they're not even asking for it yet, and you're thinking, how can I give to this baby? How can I make sure they have all their needs met? If you're thinking like that about your kid and you're human, a flawed human, we have to remember we serve a God who is the God of a royal kingdom. There's nothing that's not within his reach. And he desires to give us good things, if that makes any sense. He desires to give us good things. So once I started thinking, like, no, he's not some, like, wicked ruler. He's the God of love who wants to give good gifts. And then I remembered, okay, if God wants to give us good gifts, then this is something that if the desires on my heart, and I've already received deliverance from all these other aspects of my life, but God's kept that desire there, well, he's kept it there for a reason. Because certainly my desires for lust have gone away. My desires for, like, all the other things have, like, kind of, I see where he's worked in my life and reduced desires and changed me in ways and given me strength in ways where I needed to walk my spiritual life out differently. I can see where he's built me up in areas where I used to be weak. So then, do I serve a God who's going to build me up one-dimensionally and then leave me with all these desires for a partner that are just unmet needs? He's going to leave me with that desire, but then he took care of some of these other things that needed to be shifted around. Like, I can tell you, for example, I remember after I got saved, I went through this process of, like, trying to understand what kind of things would bring me into fornication. And I thought, oh, I must have a spirit of lust, right? And so I began to do my fasting and prayer. And you'll notice at the times you get hungry, it'll help you to understand what's working inside of you. How you feel when you start to get hungry, you'll start to feel like this temptation or that temptation. That's going to help you know what's working inside of you. And I thought, oh, I might feel perverted when I get hungry. No, that never happened. But instead, when I got hungry, I felt lonely. Completely and totally blew my mind. Then I started to put the cycle together. The phone's blowing up, people hitting me up, what are you doing, this and that. You guys know what I'm talking about. Then I put together, okay, I'm getting the what are you doing messages. Normally I scroll past them and just ignore them. But what happens when I feel that lonely pit in my stomach feeling? Once I feel lonely and I get the same message, then I act on it. So I began to put together that God had not only delivered me from bad behaviors, he delivered me from the root, which was loneliness. And I never even prayed for him to heal me of loneliness. I didn't even know that was an issue. I realized that I was in my heart, deep at the root was loneliness. And when I experienced loneliness, then I would reach for something to soothe me. And the something would be sin every time. But 6 days a week, I wouldn't reach for anything because I didn't feel lonely. But as soon as the loneliness tapped in, then I'd reach for something to soothe the loneliness, and it would be sin again. So I realized that's the pattern of behavior that I had. Is that not crazy? That's the pattern of behavior. So we serve a God who sometimes he just is just working things out of us as we go deeper into prayer and relationship with him. Some things we don't even know is wrong. Some things we haven't even figured out, or we're still growing. And he's a God who's digging. He's digging and he's looking to uproot things that need to be cast out of us, that we need to be delivered from. So I began to ask myself, am I serving a God who I never prayed for him to heal my loneliness, but he knew what was at the source of my sin, and it was loneliness. And he thought to himself, oh, you know what? I'm going to like uproot loneliness out of my daughter because this is my daughter. And you think he's going to leave another desire there? No, he's not going to do that. He may do stuff over time, but he's not going to leave the desire for marriage there and uproot loneliness. Does that make sense? He's not going to leave that there. And not only that, you know, I began to realize if he's going to leave that desire there, what does the Bible say about that desire? Right? It says to be fruitful and multiply. You know, it's not good for man to be alone. All of these things. So it began to hit me that it made sense. He left the desire there because he's not finished. He's just beginning. That's a word for somebody out there. He's not finished. He's just beginning. So as you pray, remember that if you've seen some change in your life over the last 12 to 24 months, if you've seen some growth in your life over the last 12 to 24 months, now you know you've got that growth. Why? Because God's working on something. He's working on the soil. He's making sure it's fertile so that at the time that you're ready, he can plant seeds of a relationship. So he can begin to do that. That's what I'm saying. So yes, there's a person of interest, and I'm no longer on the market, but there's a person of interest. I won't say more than that because it's hard to describe when you're in early phases, if that makes any sense. Early phases are not complicated, but they're hard to put into words. And it's only God will show the fruit of it, right? So you know, sometimes you got something and it's a bunch of nothing. Happens all the time. Sometimes you got something and it's a thing. You know, God knows and he will sort out everything. And I trust him on that. But I will say this, for those of you guys that are out there doing this and doing that, here's a couple of things that I will mention. If you've got a person of interest, this is what I recommend, because at a certain point before you get exclusive, and at a certain point before you get engaged, these are the prayers that I recommend. These are the areas that I recommend you pray before you get exclusive, and then before you get engaged, especially for the men, because the men are doing the getting engaged part. They're the ones who are doing that work. I suggest that that you guys pray for discernment early on. Not like I usually on my first, second, third date stuff, I usually am not like going hard on the prayer about the person at that point. Generally I don't. When I'm just casually just starting with someone, I'm not casual about anything, but when I start with someone, I'm not praying the first couple of dates about them. I'm just making sure that like I'm trying to make sure that I can make it to the second date or the third date kind of thing. That's where I'm at. And then as things are going well, then I'm like just praying for like, okay, continued obedience, making sure that I'm still honoring God first. And I say that because if you get somebody who's counterfeit, the best way of figuring out what's going on is to outlast them with obedience and allow them to reveal themselves, which they always do. So if you just give, and I'm not saying put a 90-day rule or whatever, I'm saying even if you're not a Christian, it's probably good to have some kind of rule, some kind of 90-day rule. And I say that just because you can outlast and begin to see fruit usually in 90 days, because people don't have the stamina to behave well for long periods of time. There's too many opportunities for them to move on and find someone else. So they generally will fall off within 90 days and start acting up, and you'll be able to see it. So honestly, even if you're not a Christian, you just stumbled on the chat, I still recommend a 90-day rule just because just because even in a worldly standard, it doesn't make any sense to move that quickly physically. Okay, when I said 90-day rule, I'm talking about physically. It doesn't make any sense to move that quickly. People typically reveal themselves in 90 days with their bad behavior, with the type of things they're bringing up, the kind of conversations they're bringing up. They typically start bringing stuff up within 90 days, and within that 90 days, you'll know that they're a bad actor. And then you can make a decision to like go off with them or to avoid them and move on. But 90 days is usually enough time for bad actors to show and reveal themselves. And I can tell you that because I've dated enough. Um, 90 days. If you do that, it's going to help you more than hurt you. For me, I'm abstinent, so there's a whole nother world here. But I think even if you're not a Christian, even if you're just kind of living regular dating, I highly recommend giving some frame of time, because people show their cards after a while sometimes. It's just what happens. They just show their cards after a while. So y'all be careful out there on those streets. Y'all be careful out there. But yeah, let's see. Let me see your other questions up in here. I know he didn't tell you to be content with being poor. I know. No, Les, this guy basically was trying to convince me that basically he had poverty mindset as far as I'm concerned, because he was just bringing up some old, you know how in Catholicism they've got this whole like we take a vow of poverty thing. I'm like, bro, we don't do that up in here. We do Bible. We do Bible all day, and there's plenty of rich people in the Bible. So no, we're not doing poverty. We're not doing poverty. We're doing a loving God and royal family, and we're kingdom kids, and we make money. The end. The end. I'm not doing any of that other stuff. Welcome everybody. Oh, look at that. You guys got a full house in here. We're doing Ask Me Anything. So yeah, I know, Les, you remember when I got sick. You were around for that. That was awful. That was awful. When I came back, you could just look at me and tell. Like, I remember my lips were puffy. What I feel like happened was whatever happened, I was inflamed from inside out. So like, I don't know what it feels like to have sickle cell, but I felt like if I had sickle cell, it felt like a sickle cell crisis, because I felt like my blood was scratching on the inside of my vessels, and it literally felt like it was scratching as it moved. It was just the most horrible full body pain, inability to move, inability to take care of myself, in and out of consciousness. It was dangerous, and I was not thinking straight. Like, I wasn't thinking I should call someone or 911. I no longer. And it happened in 24 hours. I came home from a Christmas party, and literally I remember thinking before I laid down, I have a scratchy throat. And then by the next day, it was like I was done. I don't even know what happened, or it happened so incredibly fast. Old people sick. Can't make it make sense. All right, let's look at your questions in the chat. Let's look at your questions. Hi, Marcos. Welcome from Brazil. I love that. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Destiny. Welcome. Let's see over here. Let's see your questions. Let's start over here. Let's see what questions we got going on in these streets. I miss you too, April. Let's see. Thank you for the badge, folks. Hi, Wells. Welcome. It's been a transition learning year for sure. You know what? If you're not learning, you're not living. Put that on a t-shirt. Let's see. Thank you for the gift, Gabe. Okay, I see. Hi, little games. Hello. Welcome back. Do you have any friends online too? Hop on in here. Welcome. So someone asked me, who do I think the Israelites are? I think the Israelites started with, if you walk it all the way back, you got to walk it all the way back to the patriarchs. Walk it all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you look all the way back, there is a whole conversation around Isaac versus Ishmael. There's a whole conversation. I think that's where the split starts to happen and the confusion starts to grow, is like Isaac versus Ishmael. So you guys know Abraham was quote unquote the father of faith, kind of the very first person in the Bible that God began to leverage. It was like he began to leverage for the covenant, right? Um, and the covenant was, I'm going to make you into a nation. Basically, your seeds are going to be countless and you're going to have a land. That's basically what God was saying. And basically, the seed of Christ would come through that family line. So it starts with that conversation. And God did it. He made the covenant with Abraham. Then Abraham, he told Abraham, I'm going to give you a child. And as Abraham was waiting, he waited about 20 something years. As he's waiting for that child, he was talking with his wife, Sarah, and they took it into their own hands. So they decided, oh, well, we believe God, so let's try to hurry up and get this baby going. They went to their servant, Hagar, and produced a child named Ishmael. That was their first child. That was their first child. But you can see in the Old Testament, specifically in the first few chapters of the Bible, that they didn't want to move the covenant through always the first person. God typically did something different, and in this case, God chose Isaac, the baby that was born from Sarah and Abraham. He chose Isaac. So even though Abraham was an old man, older than he was when he had Ishmael, Sarah was barren at the time. God worked a miracle, and the baby came from Abraham and Sarah. So Ishmael was a work of human effort to reproduce, but Isaac was the planned child that God was going to move the covenant through. So the Israelites actually start there. Ishmael went off, and that's where kind of the Muslim nation came through. And Isaac is where the Israelites came through. So you just follow that family line. Don't forget, the covenant was reinforced several times. Isaac, and then Isaac had a son, Jacob, and it was reinforced with Jacob. That's where you see Jacob's ladder. He's looking up and he's seeing Jesus and all that, and he's getting the covenant language reinforced. The covenant continues to get reinforced through that family line. Now, Abraham talked to God about the child that was kind of left behind, Ishmael, and God's like, I'll bless him too. Because of you, I'm going to bless him too. But the covenant did not go through Ishmael. That's what you see within the first couple of books of the Bible. And you have to continue that family line. You got Abraham, then Isaac, and then Jacob. And then you got to look at their family. Once you get to Jacob, you see Jacob ends up with Leah. He's tricked into being married to Leah. But then he loved Rachel, and he married Rachel intentionally. So he's got Leah and Rachel. Rachel had a couple of kids. Leah had a whole boatload of kids. And he ended up having a whole lot of kids. In fact, there was 12, I believe around 12. That's where you get the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's name eventually was renamed Israel. That's where you get the 12 tribes of Israel. And from that, eventually, you see that in the end of the day, the 144,000 are going to come from that family line. So I say all that to say, when we're talking about the Israelites, we're talking about the family line that came from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob eventually gets renamed the name Israel after he struggled with God. If you guys go back and look at that one in the book of Genesis, the Israelites come from that family line. It doesn't come from Ishmael. The Muslims come from Ishmael. The Israelites came from Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel that came from Jacob. That is the Israelites. Now, you can go into, at some point, we wrapped up the Jews and the Gentiles at the same time, and now we're all one in Christ Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. But that is regarding salvation. That's not regarding specific covenant promises. Covenant promises is like a legal contract. If I buy a house, my name's on the legal contract. It's just my house. That's it. My house. Just because I have my name on the contract and you know me, it's not your house. So that's how covenants work. The covenant was with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and through their family line. It didn't go to Ishmael. So that's a whole nother family line. So that's how I would describe that. I know that's probably heavy and a lot, but that's who the Israelites are. Their Israelites are those people that came through that family line. And eventually, you guys know, when Jesus came, he died, suffered on the cross, died, buried, resurrected. People began to get persecuted for their Christian faith. That's what happened historically. After Jesus died, Jesus made a big scene doing miracles and people began to get jealous. At some point, there was persecution for the Christian faith, anybody who followed Jesus, because people were hating Jesus for all those miracles and for looking like a person of authority, which he was, God on earth. By just looking like a person of authority doing miracles, it was causing like the Roman government to freak out. So when you look at it, people after he died, people who followed him were excited about it because they saw him resurrected. He was seen visibly by over 500 people. By then the issue became, welcome back, darling. The issue became that those people who were talking about him and excited about him were sharing the good news. They were sharing the gospel, but they were persecuted for their faith. So they began to scatter because they're trying to survive. They began to scatter all over. As they scattered all over, that's how Christianity grew. So, yeah, I'll just kind of leave it at that. So some of those people came from the family line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is your core group. That's your core group. Now, are there other people who are from Israel, from the nation of Israel? Yeah, but the core group was that group. Hopefully that helps. Thank you for the badge, Dejan. Joe says it's complicated. No, my relationship status is not complicated. It's just moving at God's pace. It's not complicated at all. I don't have any concerns about it. God's gonna do what he's gonna do, and I'm good with it. I just check in. If I'm at the point of relationship exclusivity or marriage, it's gonna be time to talk to God about it. Does that make sense? If it's like something like that, I'm going to sit down and say, hey, let's talk to God about this, because I don't want to be in an exclusive relationship unnecessarily. I think that's concerning, right? You end up in an exclusive relationship, hopefully it's for the purpose of marriage. If not, you might be wasting your time. So you don't really want to be unnecessarily getting exclusive with people. If you don't really see it, maybe leave yourself, leave it alone. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for the follow, Don Trell. Thank you for the badge as well. Let's see what else you guys got. Thank you for the gift, 8107. Let's see. Oh, thank you for the compliments, Connie. We're doing Ask Me Anything. Do you guys have questions? Pop them in the chat. So I'm taking your questions. I wrapped up all the questions so far. You guys don't have any other questions? Let me know. Pop it in the chat. It's been kind of quick. Let's see if you guys have any questions here. I'm waiting. Port City's back in the house. Welcome back, Port City. I remember you. Welcome. Oh. Welcome, Andrew. Welcome. Let's see what other questions you guys have. Yes, Connie, you can ask a question. Go ahead, shoot. It's all yours. Floor is yours. Take your time, darling. Connie wants my number. That's interesting. I'm trying to understand the purposes. Typically, if we have business dealings will go through my email address, info@victorylifecorp.com. My business inquiries go there. So I'm curious what that might be about. So yeah. If you've got business inquiries, that's where it goes. We handle our business that way rather than phone numbers. But oh, I'm sorry, but I'm always online. If you have other questions, you can just ask them. That's why I come live. So I make it easy. I make it super easy. You can ask anything you want. That's why we call it Ask Me Anything. All right, let's see if you guys have any other questions. Let's see. My little quiet group today. Normally TikTok is the one who's got all the juicy questions. TikTok is like sitting in and they're being entertained tonight. I see you guys on TikTok leaving yourselves to be entertained. It's all good. It's all good. I see you. Let's see what else we got. TikTok is usually where I get all the questions. They usually like flood the chat with like 1001 questions. They're kind of chill tonight though. Alrighty. Well, I think we wrapped up all of our questions, guys. So I'm going to holler at you guys later. Join me next time we go live again. Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye.